if, Mickey, you served in the Congress later, you also did serve at a time when, probably when it was less partisan than today. Mickey Edwards was a congressman from Oklahoma, and he's director of the Constitution Project. He's vice president of the Aspen Institute. He and I have testified together before Senator Feingold's very good hearing on restoring the rule of law. So now you jump us chronologically forward, including up to the present time.
Okay, Fritz. Well, first of all, it's a great honor to be asked to be a part of this and to actually spend this time on the platform with Ted Sorensen, who is, one of my great heroes, and I'm sure yours too. This report is essential because the issue that it deals with is absolutely fundamental. We're in a democracy, and democracies are not about policy. They're not about policy decisions. They're not about what kind of bills you pass or don't pass. It's about process. It's about how you make your decisions. It's about who controls the process. And when this country was started, well, first of all, I want to say the room right next to this one, I don't want anybody to go over and look at it, but the room next to this is the Zenger room. It's named for John Peter Zenger. And John Peter Zenger was a publisher in New York who had the temerity in his newspaper, to criticize the royally appointed governor, which was against the law. And he did it, and a jury, in fact, found that he did it and said, but we're not going to punish him because we're not going to say that you can't criticize your government. And for us to be able to keep an eye on our government, to criticize the government, is the foundation of American democracy. Without it, we're no different than any other country in the world. The founders of this country decided, it was a very unique thing at the time, that we were going to break the pattern. There had always been rulers and subjects obeyed the rulers. They said, we're not going to be anybody's subjects. This was the original, you're not the boss of me, right? They said, we're not going to be anybody's subjects. We're going to be citizens. And citizens tell their government what to do. To be able to do that, you need to know what your government is doing. You need to have access to the information. And I want to there's a criticism here, totally justified. Fritz made it, it's totally justified. There has been a great deal of presidential overreaching over recent years, presidents claiming authority that's nowhere granted in the Constitution. But the problem from my perspective is not presidential overreaching, it's congressional acquiescence. It's I have had the opportunity to speak to large numbers of House and Senate staffers and members who, in order to try to get information about what the executive branch is doing, by the way, it's not the government, it's just one branch of the government, just as the president's not the head of government, he's head of one of the three branches. But in order to get information about what their government is doing, they file Freedom of Information Acts as though they were, a merchant in Dubuque rather than members of Congress, and not understanding that when you take your oath of office to enter the Congress, you're not getting rights, you're taking on obligations. Because the Congress, as the voice of the people, has a duty to get the information that it needs in order to be able to change the laws, to make sure the laws are being enforced. And more, that concept within, and I'll use just one more example, that concept within the legislative branch of what its authority is and what powers the Constitution grants to it and withholds from the executive. That idea is getting lost to the point that, just to mention one issue that came up recently, which I will not get into very much, but on the whole question of interrogation, what happened in that, as has happened over and over and over again, is that 4 members of Congress were allowed to be briefed on what decision the executive branch had made regarding what American policy was going to be in the whole area of interrogation, and they were told, you may not tell any other member of Congress, and you may not bring your staff and those of us who are in Congress know that that's where all the expertise is the staff. And you can't tell. And I said to myself, what kind of member of Congress says, oh, okay, you can tell me that I can't tell anybody, and thank you for filling me in even though now I can't do anything about it. So what I hope comes out of reports like this one is a sense within the Congress that it, on behalf of the American people, needs to reassert its right to get information so that it can make the decisions that the Constitution gives to it to make.
Well, thank you very much.